The unexpected prisoner. Commander Zexful of the Imperial Warship Dominion paced the length of the observation deck, his carapace clicking against the polished obsidian floor. The viewing portal revealed a woman sitting alone in the interrogation chamber, legs crossed, humming an unfamiliar melody as she examined her fingernails. 3 days, he muttered to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Vryn. 3 days of our most advanced fear tactics, psychological warfare, and threat displays. And what do we have to show for it? Nothing, Commander, Vryn replied, her translucent tentacles coiling nervously. Subject Maya Chen shows no measurable stress response. Our psych scanners cannot detect fear signatures. The human woman, Maya, had been found drifting in an antiquated Earth vessel at the edge of the Orion Arm. The ship's engines were failing, life support running on auxiliary power. By all logic, she should have been terrified when the Dominion's tractor beam locked onto her ship. Instead, she had waved at the cameras and asked if they had decent coffee. Resume the recording, Zexful ordered. The hologram flickered to life, showing yesterday's interrogation. On screen, Maya sat across from the Empire's most feared interrogator, General Krask, a 12-foot-tall mantid whose mere presence had caused hardened war criminals to confess. So tell me about Earth's defenses, Krask demanded, mandibles clacking. Maya tilted her head. We have Twitter. Nothing survives Twitter. She smiled. You know, your exoskeleton has a beautiful iridescence. Is that natural, or do you polish it? Krask's compound eyes had blinked in confusion. Now, watching the playback, Zexful growled. This makes no sense. Humans are supposed to be primitive, emotional creatures. Their world is chaotic, violent. Our intelligence reports indicate they should be easily intimidated. Perhaps she's defective, Vryn suggested. No, came a soft voice from the doorway. The officers turned to see Professor Elia, the ship's xenobiologist. Her silver scales shimmered as she approached. I've been studying human history, she said. Their planet is a crucible of unpredictability, disasters, wars, climate extremes. They've evolved not just to survive chaos, but to adapt to it. Some even seem to thrive in it. Zexful's antennae flattened against his head. Explain. Think about it, Commander. We built an empire on order, on predictability. Our species evolved on stable worlds with minimal environmental threats. But humans, she gestured to the screen where Maya was now constructing a miniature sculpture from her meal tray. They adapt to chaos because they've never known anything else. That doesn't explain her lack of fear, Vryn countered. Doesn't it? Elia asked. What if fear is a luxury for species that expect consistency? What if humans have evolved beyond it as a survival mechanism? Zexful turned back to the viewing portal. Then how do we control what doesn't fear us? That, said Elia, is the question that should frighten you. In her cell, Maya knew she was being watched. She had spotted the nearly invisible monitoring devices within minutes of her arrival. 20 years as an emergency room nurse in Detroit had given her an eye for details others missed. It had also given her a perspective on fear that her captors couldn't comprehend. When you've held someone's heart in your hands during a power outage, with backup generators failing and only the light from your phone to guide a suture, well, alien intimidation tactics seemed almost quaint by comparison. Good morning, surveillance team, she said cheerfully to the empty room. Hope you slept well. I'm thinking of redecorating in here. The whole sterile doom aesthetic is a bit 2010s Earth, don't you think? On the other side of the monitor, a junior technician named Griv watched with fascination. Unlike his superiors, Griv found the human intriguing rather than disturbing. For 3 cycles, he had been assigned to monitor her, and in that time, he had begun to wonder if the Empire had made a grave miscalculation. We're moving to advanced interrogation, announced Admiral Vrex, who had arrived from the Imperial capital to oversee what was quickly becoming a diplomatic incident. The Dream Extractor. Zexful's exoskeleton paled. Sir, the Dream Extractor has never been tested on humans. We don't know how their neural pathways will respond. Precisely why we must use it, Vrex countered. We need to understand what this creature fears. Once we know that, we can control her, and by extension, understand how to subjugate her species. Professor Elia stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, I strongly advise against this course of action. Human brains are remarkably adaptable. Their neural plasticity exceeds anything we've encountered. The dream extractor might. Your concerns are noted, Professor, Vrex interrupted. But this is now a matter of Imperial security. Prepare the equipment. Maya was escorted to a chamber lined with pulsating crystalline structures. At the center stood a chair surrounded by floating neural probes. Cool setup, she commented as technicians secured her. Very space dentist. You know, on Earth, they give you a little toy if you're brave during your appointment. Admiral Vrex stepped forward, his massive frame blocking the light. Human, this device will extract your deepest fears directly from your subconscious. There is no resistance. There is no escape. Maya looked up at him, her expression softening. You know what I've noticed about your empire. You're all terrified. Not of me. Of uncertainty. That's why you need to know what I fear, isn't it? Because you can't comprehend someone who functions without fear controlling them. Vrex's neck frills extended in anger. Activate the dream extractor. The crystals pulsed, emitting a low hum that reverberated through the chamber. Maya's eyes closed as the neural probes connected with her mind. The room's screens flickered to life, ready to display the extracted nightmare images. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, slowly, images began to form on the screens, but instead of nightmares, they showed memories. Maya holding the hand of a dying patient who had no family, working through a 36-hour shift during a city-wide blackout, standing in her flooded apartment after a burst pipe destroyed everything she owned. And through each memory, Maya showed not fear, but resilience, determination, and a strange kind of peace. Impossible, whispered Vrex. The machine is malfunctioning. No, said Professor Elia, staring at the readings. It's working perfectly. These are her deepest emotional memories, but they're not dominated by fear. They're processed differently. The images shifted again, showing Maya alone in her apartment, crying. But even this was not simple fear or sadness. It was complex, layered with determination, and a fierce, quiet strength. Shut it down, ordered Zexthal suddenly. We're not finished, Vrex protested. Yes, we are, Zexthal insisted. We're violating something we don't understand, and it's teaching us nothing useful. As the machine powered down, Maya's eyes opened. She looked directly at Vrex. Did you find what you were looking for? She asked quietly. For the first time since his arrival, the Admiral had no response. Word spread quickly through the Dominion. The human who couldn't be frightened. Crew members found excuses to pass by her cell or the observation deck. Some began leaving small tokens, interesting rocks from different worlds, pieces of artwork, even alien fruits. Griv, the junior technician, began answering her questions about the Empire, explaining their customs, their history. In the command center, Zexthal watched with growing concern as his crew became increasingly fascinated with their captive. She's contaminating us, Vrex declared. This human resilience, it's like a virus, spreading through the ranks. Perhaps, suggested Professor Elia, we should consider another perspective. What if what she represents isn't a threat, but an opportunity? The Empire has conquered worlds through fear for millennia. What might we become if we learned another way? But before Vrex could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Vryn rushed into the command center. Commander, we've detected a quantum anomaly directly in our path. The engines can't adjust course quickly enough to avoid it. Zexthal sprang to action. Full reverse thrust. Shield reinforcement to maximum. Too late, Vryn reported. Impact in 30 seconds. As the crew braced for collision, Maya's voice came unexpectedly over the internal comm system. I can see that weird space thing from my window. It looks like the quantum storms we deal with near Saturn. I've got some experience with this. Vrex turned to Zextol in outrage. How is she accessing our communication system? But the commander was already moving. Bring her to the bridge. Now. The revolution of resilience. Maya stood on the bridge of the Dominion, barefoot and still wearing the simple gray jumpsuit they had given her upon capture. The quantum anomaly loomed on the main view screen, a writhing mass of impossible colors and fractured reality. On Earth, we call these quantum knots, she explained quickly. They started appearing after our first faster-than-light experiments went wrong. I was part of the medical team that treated the survivors. There were survivors? Elia asked, astonished. We're human, Maya said with a small smile. There are always survivors. She pointed to the anomaly. Your shields are all wrong for this. They're too rigid, too focused on repelling energy. You need to disperse it instead. Because I'm still alive after treating people who flew through one of these, Maya shot back. And because in about 20 seconds, that anomaly is going to tear this ship apart unless you listen to me. Zexthol looked between Maya and the approaching anomaly. What do you suggest? Reconfigure your shields to operate on a rotating frequency pattern. Don't try to block the energy. Let it flow through in controlled channels. The commander turned to his engineers. Do it. As the crew raced to implement Maya's suggestion, Vrex stepped closer to her. If this is a deception, then we all die together, Maya finished for him. Not much of a deception. The ship shuddered as the edge of the anomaly reached them. Warning lights flashed across every console. Shield reconfiguration complete, reported an engineer. Now reduce power to 70%, Maya instructed. Too much resistance will create feedback. Zexthal nodded, and the order was given. The shields dimmed visibly as the Dominion plunged into the heart of the anomaly. For several excruciating minutes, reality itself seemed to bend around them. The view screen showed impossible geometries, time stretching and compressing. Crew members clutched their stations as vertigo and nausea swept through the bridge. Through it all, Maya stood calm, occasionally suggesting minor adjustments to the shield configuration. Her steadiness became an anchor point for the panicking crew. Finally, the turbulence subsided. The view screen cleared, showing normal space once more. We've cleared the anomaly, Lieutenant Vryn announced, her voice tinged with disbelief. All systems functional. Minimal damage reported. The bridge erupted in relieved exclamations. Several crew members approached Maya, touching her shoulder or arm in gestures of gratitude that transcended species barriers. Zexthal watched this interaction with newfound curiosity. You saved my ship. Why? Maya shrugged. Because I was here and I could help. That's what humans do. Not all humans, surely, Vrex interjected, though his hostility had noticeably diminished. More than you'd think, Maya replied. Especially when things get bad. We're at our best in a crisis. Professor Elia stepped forward. That's it, isn't it? That's the adaptation I couldn't quite identify. Your species doesn't just survive chaos. You form communities through it. Crisis doesn't fragment humans, it unites them. Sometimes, Maya acknowledged. We're not perfect. But yes, there's something about facing the impossible together that brings out our better nature. In the aftermath of the quantum anomaly, the dynamics aboard the Dominion shifted dramatically. Maya was moved from her cell to guest quarters. Crew members sought her out, curious about Earth and human resilience. She became a de facto ambassador, building bridges of understanding where fear had once dominated. Admiral Vrex observed these changes with growing unease. 2 weeks after the anomaly incident, he summoned Zexthal to his private quarters. This situation has become untenable, Vrex declared. The humans' influence is spreading. 3 crew members have requested transfers to scientific vessels instead of military assignments. Professor Elia is proposing a cultural exchange program. This disruption cannot continue. What do you propose, Admiral? Thol asked carefully. We are approaching the Nexus relay station. Once there, I will transfer the human to a secure Imperial facility for further study. The Dominion will undergo a complete crew rotation and memory adjustment protocols. Thol's antennae stiffened in alarm. Memory adjustment. For the entire crew. This contamination must be contained, Vrex insisted. The Empire has maintained order for 10,000 years through strength and fear. One human cannot be allowed to undermine that foundation. After leaving the Admiral's quarters, Thol found himself walking to the ship's observation deck. He stood before the vast window, watching stars streak by as the Dominion hurtled through hyperspace. Beautiful, isn't it? He turned to find Maya standing nearby, gazing at the star field. How did you access this area? He asked, though without real concern. She smiled. Griff thought I might enjoy the view. Thol nodded, returning his attention to the stars. Admiral Vrex plans to transfer you to an Imperial research facility when we reach the Nexus station. I figured something like that was coming, she said calmly. He's afraid I'm disrupting your Empire's control system. Are you? Maya considered this. Not intentionally. I'm just being myself. But systems built on fear are always disrupted by people who aren't afraid. And what would you build instead? Thol asked. Connection. Cooperation. Community. She turned to face him. The same things that saved this ship when we hit that anomaly. Thol was silent for a long moment. The Admiral has also ordered memory adjustments for the crew, to remove your influence. Maya's expression hardened. That's not right. You can imprison me if you think you must, but erasing people's memories, taking away their choices, that crosses a line. I agree, Thol said quietly. 2 days later, as the Dominion approached the Nexus relay station, chaos erupted once more. The ship's systems began failing in cascading sequence. Communications, navigation, life support. Emergency protocols activated automatically, sealing sections of the ship and rerouting power. On the bridge, Admiral Vrex demanded explanations, but the crew worked with inexplicable calm amidst the crisis. What is happening? He roared. Thol appeared at his side. It appears to be a cascade failure in our central command systems. Admiral, most unusual. Fix it immediately. We must reach the Nexus station. I'm afraid that's impossible at present, Thol replied. Safety protocols have locked our course. We're being diverted to the nearest habitable system for emergency repairs. Vrex's suspicion grew as he noticed the lack of panic among the crew. This is deliberate sabotage. Sabotage is a serious accusation, Admiral. Thol responded evenly. Perhaps you'd like to oversee the damage assessment personally. Professor Elia is coordinating efforts in engineering section. When Vrex arrived in engineering, he found not chaos but organized activity. Professor Elia directed repairs with Maya at her side, the human woman somehow understanding enough of their technology to assist meaningfully. What is the meaning of this? Vrex demanded. Maya turned to him, her expression resolute. Your empire needs to evolve. Admiral, fear isn't sustainable as a control system. It never has been, on any world. You orchestrated this failure. Actually, interjected Griff, stepping forward from among the engineers, we did. Many of us. Because we've seen another way to exist. Vrex looked around in growing horror as he realized the extent of the crew's rebellion. Not violent, not destructive, but determined and unified. This is treason, he whispered. This is evolution, countered Professor Elia. The Empire has stagnated, Admiral. We conquer, but we no longer grow. We enforce, but we no longer learn. What do you intend to do with me? Vrex asked, his hand moving toward his weapon. Nothing, said Maya. You're free to make your own choices, just like everyone else. Thol joined them, addressing Vrex directly. The ship will be repaired within days. When it is, you may return to the capital and report whatever you wish. But know this, What has begun here cannot be contained. The crew has voted. We're establishing a new colony on the edge of Imperial space, a place where we can explore different ways of existing together. With a human? Vrex asked incredulously. With anyone who chooses to join us, Zexful corrected. Including you, Admiral, should you wish it. Vrex stared at them all. The commander, the professor, the human, the crew members watching with hopeful eyes. In their faces, he saw something he had never expected. Not the absence of fear, but something stronger than fear. You will fail, he said finally. Chaos cannot sustain civilization. Maya smiled gently. That's where you're wrong, Admiral. Embracing chaos while holding on to each other is exactly how civilization evolves. It's how humans survived our own history. She extended her hand, a human gesture of connection. You don't have to fear a future you can't control, she said. You just have to be brave enough to help shape it. Vrex did not take her hand, but for the first time, he looked at her not with contempt or suspicion, but with the beginning of understanding. 3 days later, the Dominion arrived at an uninhabited planet near the rim of the galaxy. As Maya stood on the observation deck watching the blue-green world grow larger in the viewport, Zexful joined her. We've received word from Imperial Command, he said. Admiral Vrex has reported the Dominion destroyed in the quantum anomaly. All hands lost. Maya raised an eyebrow. That's unexpected. Perhaps not, Zexful replied. Perhaps he understood that some revolutions need space to grow before they're ready to challenge an empire. Together, they watched as the first shuttles began their descent to the planet's surface. A new beginning, sparked by an accidental encounter between species who had evolved different responses to the chaos of existence. You know, Maya said thoughtfully, on Earth, we have a saying. The most powerful force in the universe isn't fear, it's hope.